Happy Friday, June 1st. How's everybody? How's everybody doing? I'm doing fine. I don't think I have any particular notes other than it's July 4 weekend. So Monday is a day off. I will not be streaming for the July 4 holiday here in the States. I think that's the only note I have. Well, hope everyone's having a good day today. Let's get right to it. Nope, wrong thing. That's the thing I want. There we go. Let's just get to it. If you haven't been in here before, Fridays, OSR Reddit Roundup, I go into the OSR subreddit and we just check out stuff and see what people have to say and hopefully find some interesting things and talk about it. As usual, I'm on the hot tab. And also, as usual, if you're watching in the chat and you see something that I passed by but you think is super awesome, amazing, shout it out. Hey, Ian Boyd, glad you could join us. I know I was in here the other night, maybe it was last night, and I saw something cool. Hopefully it's still on this hot tab so I can read it. Well, I mean, I don't know it's cool because I didn't read it, but I bookmarked it. Let's see, we could try this out right here. Use magic to make better oxen. Parentheses, uranium butterflies. Posted by Wizard Thief Fighter. I don't know what uranium butterflies is. Is that for ultraviolet grasslands or something similar? Can we see? Oh, why is it? That's how much you're gonna let me zoom in? Come on. Alright, so I guess these are bovivetches. They're sure-footed. I mean, I guess I don't know. I'm not sure with the I'm guessing this is ultraviolet grasslands, which I'm not super familiar with. I don't know what the plus and the minus, so I'm just going to say advantage disadvantage. They're sure-footed, so they're good in bad terrain, but they're vulnerable, so they have a disadvantage versus critical damage. There's the Minivaka bovivetch. One of the original self-replicating vetch models developed by the Vecni Pod Biofabrication concern during the first equipment era. At one point, they became so plentiful in the infrared reach that they became popularly known as machine cows. Carrygalls, detachable cysts on the vetch's back, serve as cargo or passenger pods. That's cool, kind of gross. They're headless, neural cores stored within, which gives them advantage versus critical damage. But the other ones, or maybe, okay. I guess the stuff at the top was part of something else, which I should have read. So they're not actually related. For some reason I just assumed that this wasn't just a screen cap, but I should have followed the heading the layout, which would let me know that stuff at the top of the page goes to an unseen number 16, not related. So anyway, these guys, headless, they are radio eaters. They consume ambient energies and radiation. They're sentient, about as smart as an ox. They are sure-footed. They have advantage in bad terrain. This stuff here, I must reply. It must be part of something else. And then we have 19 Chariot Sky Shaman. I guess this is excerpt from a book, 189. Is this their book? So now I'm curious. I thought this was just a thing, but now it's like, did they post this? Okay, so yeah, maybe this is a book they're working on. Because someone's saying, what is uranium butterflies? Yeah, not sure. Okay, so it's just really an excerpt from a book. I like the art here for, I guess this is the Minivaka. Bovivetches don't really look like cows at all. It's cool. All right, a nice little tidbit. I was hoping for something a little bit more. I feel like that's, I don't know, I guess if I had a book like that, I suppose that's not a bad thing to share. The art is kind of cool, and the thing is interesting, but the way it's presented on the page is kind of a random grab, not even the full page. I mean, just give the whole page. Give the entirety of page 189. You don't need to give, or if you are going to say that, I just want to highlight this one thing, then I'm assuming if you're making this book, you have access to all the source files. Just make a one-pager about those oxen or something. I think this is something that someone else did really well. I'm spacing out on the name. I could look it up on. I've covered some of their stuff on YouTube. But when they've made little mini supplements that highlight stuff in a bigger book, they've made the mini supplements kind of complete. Even if it's just a 1 page or whatever, they've made it like, here's a thing that you have, and hey, there's going to be a lot more in this other book, but this thing is kind of complete. Whereas that one's just this kind of weird, basically screen grab of half a page, which I don't know. You can do better. It looks cool, and hey, Wizard Thief Fighter, props to you, and hopefully your project goes far. But you go the extra mile if you're gonna share something like that. And you didn't put any context or anything. Just do a little bit better. Take it up a notch. So this is a discussion on someone's looking for their favorite OSR modules. I'm interested in this. I'm assuming by OSR they're not just talking about ye old school D&D modules. Hey all, just wanted to get your input. I'm currently running through a DCC module, The Corpse That Love Built, and I'm enjoying the old school style adventure design. I'm looking for more modules in the OSR sphere of gaming. Could be any system. I'm fine with doing some conversions. They're pretty self-contained and ideally might even work for one-shots. If you could let me know about your favorites, I'd love to check them out. So I'm curious. Ian says they're surprised how far they had to scroll down to find the hole in the oak in this thread. I don't think I've read Hole in the Oak. I think I need to look that one up. Impossible Tornado mentions the Waking of Willoughby Hall, which I haven't read. And this is the thing, there's a lot of these modules I have not read. I probably should just get lined up in a stack, a bunch of kind of the more well-known, well-thought-of, non-old TSR kind of OSR ones that I haven't covered. I've covered a few, but there's a bunch that I haven't. And because I don't know, they don't all these names get rattled off, and I just kind of go like, okay, like the Waking Willoughby Hall, great. Don't know it though. Incandescent Grottos is also commented by Interlocutor X, and another one I haven't read. Deep Carbon Observatory, I've read a bit of. Waking Willoughby Hall, another vote for that one. More Deep Carbon Observatory. Morgan's Fort. I think I flipped through that once or twice. This guy's posted some links to a whole bunch of things. I'm just posting to the, well, no worries, not to upload it. Posting to the Dungeon Contest. Winter's Daughter. Gradient Descent. Lair of the Sad Mage. A Simple Dungeon. Prison of the Hated Pretender. Winter's Daughter again. 13 Pharaohs. Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. Someone's got a top 10. Deathfrost, Doom, Arachnophobia, Winter's Daughter, Tomb of the Serpent Kings, The Inn of Lost Heroes, Jewels of Carnifex, The One Who Watches from Below, Deep Carbon Observatory, Vanilla Adventure, Tomb of the Bull King. Some of these, though, I don't know if they, sometimes people get, I've done this too. You're reading in the thread and you just start typing up stuff and you kind of forget some of the context. This person was kind of wanted to lean towards stuff that was, you could run in a single session, and some of these absolutely Deep Carbon Observatory are not single session or even remotely single session dungeons. Tower of the Stargazer, Ravager of Time, Many Gates of Gain, Castles Antillian, or Zintalan, Dreamhouse of Nether Prince. Again, I think some of these are not really one-shot oriented. Trilemma stuff, Deathfrost Doom, Maze of the Blue Medusa. I'm not sure if some of these again are almost they're kind of they're really more campaigns than just adventures. Fall of Whitecliff, Free Sandboxian has this. I made this on a copier in the 80s feel. The Croaking Fane, Vampire Cruise. Yeah, and I haven't seen a Hole in the Oak yet. Not sure where it even is on here. A lot. Oh, maybe I missed it. I guess someone must have posted it somewhere, but I guess Ian, you should add that into that thread because I didn't see it. Maybe I missed it somewhere, but still, yeah. I mean, there's a lot. No one put. I didn't see any Black Worm of Brandonsford. I didn't see, which is probably not a one shot, but you could probably run it depending on how much time you have. You maybe could run it as a one shot. Wish I had more to add on that note, but I don't tend to run modules as is. Even now that I'm running, which was a conscious effort on my part to throw B2 into my game, Keep on the Borderlands, it's still already veering wildly away from a lot of what it was. What's the culture around hirelings in your group? This is posted by RF Cannon. This seems like an interesting discussion topic. In your campaign, how do your players treat hirelings? How many do they hire? Do all the characters hire them? Who manages them? Who roleplays them? How much attention is given to them? Anything else of interest about how your party does hirelings? All right, so I will talk about my game, and then we can look at the comments, and I'm happy to read if you guys have anything in the chat in terms of how you do your hirelings. So how do the players treat the hirelings? Pretty well in my game. They don't kick them when they're down. They treat them with a fair amount of kindness. They seem to be cognizant of their morale, because they will. There were a couple times where they would ask me, like, so what's their morale like? How do they feel? Like something bad happened. I think one of the hirelings got killed. And they're like, well, how are the other hirelings taking it? And I was like, well, they're kind of down, and it's been a rough couple of days, and it's been tough sledding, and they'll try to kind of comfort them a little bit. In terms of how many they hire, I kind of let them hire as many as they can afford. I'm not stopping them, putting any kind of bounds on them, but they have to make deals. So the thing is, this is going to depend on your party, depend on your game. Hirelings, the ones that are going to go into battle with you, other than torchbearers, I don't think the torchbearers get a part of the treasure. Just about all the other ones, like these kind of mercenaries, and there's one of them. There's a first level fighter that they had, and at one point they had a first level magic user, but they got killed. As they get a piece of the treasure, so everyone's getting a share. Everyone's getting a cut. And my party are well aware, because I've just kept hammering it in their heads, that how much loot that they bring home, their kind of profit is going to profit of an adventure is basically going to be their their experience for the adventure, more or less. They'll get little bits of experience for this and that, but the vast majority is coming from loot. So they know that if they hire 50 guys who are all going to take a quarter of a share, that they're all of a sudden, that's going to be a good chunk of their treasure that they don't get, and that gets subtracted before they get their experience. So basically, the more guys they bring in, sure, things may be easier, they could take on different challenges, but the challenges better be worthwhile, because if they don't get any treasure, they're not only are they paying these guys money out of their pockets, but they're cutting out a big chunk of change, or potentially a big chunk of change from their treasure. So that's, at this point, it's tending to balance itself. Now, of course, the party could end up super wealthy and then be fine with paying 500 mercs and do something like I think in one of the original kind of Tomb of Horrors run, when somebody brought in 200 orc mercenaries and just sent them in one after another, a la Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, to just go through each trap, just brute force every challenge on the way to the bottom of the dungeon. They haven't gotten to that stage yet. But so right now, that's not too much of a concern. So that's how I'm running it, and for now, it's been working fine. And I think they've been running with four or five guys. I think I've had the group hiring them as a group. So basically, they don't belong to any one person. They're just the party has hired these guys. The party presents themselves as some kind of organization, though they don't have contracts or anything, but basically as an organization, and then they hire some mercenaries or some hirelings. So the hirelings are I guess employed by the group, not particular players. Though I run them the other way, where particular characters will have certain hirelings, and I find that works too, just a little bit differently. In this case, I've just had them do everything as a group. Who manages them in terms of like their stats, equipment, and stuff? I've been putting I play virtually online using Discord, and I will just have their equipment listed in the Discord so that everyone can see it. So their equipment is, for the most part, publicly visible to the players. If I had a hireling who had done something dastardly and, like, I don't know, stolen something or taken something that the other ones were aware of, I would keep that separately. So they don't have perfect information. I guess I could say is that the equipment that the hirelings have professed to own is open to the party. If I wanted to have something secret, that would be secret. They're not getting a full 100% view, my view of what the hirelings have. They're having basically an outward view of, oh, well, what's your kit like? And that way they can make decisions. Right now, they've been big on trying to do a lot of tactics with throwing missile weapons to start combat and then closing. So they want to make sure all the hirelings have spears or throwing axes or something like that. So having their equipment, they've been able to say, okay, these guys don't have any throwing weapons or bows or crossbows or anything like that. So we'll try to pick up stuff or move stuff around. So, I let them manage that. In terms of who manages them and making or in the role-playing sense, which I guess the next question, who role-plays them? I do. I role-play them. It's a stylistic thing. I just think it adds a lot. To me, I want the players to have to consider them as things that aren't 100% trustworthy. If I'm just have a hireling and I'm just directing where they go, then I have 100% confidence and everything to just kind of, okay, that person's doing that. I don't want them to have that 100% confidence. I want to be able to roll some dice and say, oh, maybe he's doesn't really want to do that, or he's a little bit cautious, or he moves at half speed, and the players have to wonder, like, I told him to run, get the thing, why is he walking, and why aren't they going? I want to do that, and I want to do that without having to pull control away from the characters or away from the player. So if I'm the player and I'm running this NPC in this hireling, and then suddenly as the GM I take that person away from them, I don't want to have that push button. Like, you know what, I'm just going to manage them. I can then use them to feed in role playing stuff and not feel like I'm interjecting, and it don't have to have any. It doesn't turn combat into a separate game, because I think sometimes they're going to run them in combat, but I'm going to run them outside of combat. No, I'm just going to run them all the time. And there is a little bit of a tactical element where it forces the players to think about when how they're commanding their hirelings and when. If they go into combat and they just start running and doing something, the hirelings are kind of going to do what the hirelings think they want to do unless they're given some kind of order. They may, a player decides to just be kind of crazy and run into the mouth of a purple worm swinging their axes. The hirelings aren't just going to follow behind, especially if the character doesn't say, like, follow me or come with me, or like, I know this is going to work, or something to reassure them. Like, they're just going to watch this guy run into the mouth of a purple worm. The hirelings more likely are going to sit back and go, yeah, I'm going to let that guy do his thing, and I'll do something from back here. And I like that. It adds a little bit of the chaos of battle. I've had that where the parties had to sort of have their initiative set up and then have to rejigger what they're going to do because they want to time what these hirelings may do, what they do, and it adds a little bit of complexity in there, but it's the kind of complexity I like because I feel like it adds to that sort of chaos of the situation and that sort of management situation. How much attention is given to them outside of combat? When they're, combat, they're going to get focused on at least a little bit because they're going to have a turn and do something. Outside of combat, they're in the background because I want the players to be in the foreground. Though I'll have the hirelings speak up at certain moments, either when I just think something it's funny, or sometimes they be my voice a little bit if I think something is obvious that the party's missing. For example, there was at one point where they were being followed by a pack of wolves in the night, and they were dragging this guy's body with them, and the wolves were coming and getting closer. And finally, one of the hirelings, they're sitting there and they're thinking about what to do, and all the while they have this body that they'd kind of forgotten that they're literally dragging behind them on the ground. And one of the hirelings is like, maybe we should just give him the body. And that kind of, to me, was me as a GM going like, do you guys had forgotten? Like, instead of me saying as a GM, like, have you guys forgotten you're dragging a corpse, a fresh, bleeding corpse along the ground, basically dragging it behind you, leaving, not only the fact that it's a body and these wolves were hungry and everything else and man-eaters, but, it's leaving a trail of blood. Like, it's leaving a nice, clear trail to where you are as you're trying to get away in the night. But I also thought, as I'm saying this, I remember at the time I was thinking, like, but I don't want to just be that, I don't. Some people like that. Hey, give them everything. Well, I'm like, yeah. But then I'm like, well, the hirelings. So I rolled some dice. I'm like, yeah, they're gonna say like, hey, boss, how about we ditch the body that we're dragging behind us? That might help us out with the wolves. So I do that, and then the last part. Anything else of interest about how your party does hirelings? No, they hire them, they pay them off, they keep them around, they use them up. I don't know if there's anything really of interest. I think that one of the fun things about hirelings is all the story elements that can come out of them when things happen. It could be, there's a lot of gold that you can mine out of those relationships as they grow, and they can be useful when you want to pull things in, when you want to show the impacts of the world. Maybe the party doesn't have any relatives in this town that's under siege, so thinking like, well, why do we care? But maybe the hireling does, and you can inject them in the game. And the hireling's like, we got to go, boss, please. I'll withhold my pay for a month if we go and help my ma, something like that. So they give you got a lot of good stuff. Over Patrol, hey, welcome. Terrence says, gullible, suicidal hirelings cost extra. Yes, they do indeed. I'm curious to see what other folks in the chat are saying. Be wary, be very wary. Hirelings have their own agendas and quirks. Loads of fun for me, though. Yep, I would agree with that. Thror the Second says, we hire them at 1 gold piece a day for porters and torchbearers, half share for missile and second roll melee. DM rolls them up. We run them, but DM decides if we are abusing them and calls for morale rolls. All right. I think that's fine. GarQ says, I've introduced hirelings to my 5th edition group, mostly new players. Each character can hire 1 plus charisma modifier hireling, and I role play them. Players care quite a bit about not letting them die. They choose who to bring with them and who stays to watch over their home base whenever they go on quests. Right now they have 2 porters, an oracle that can give rerolls and a minor heal once in a while, and a minstrel that gathers rumors and can reroll an NPC's reaction roll once in a while. I'm also counting the barbarian's wolf pet as a hireling, which can help with certain travel activities, like tracking other creatures and hunting for supplies. Very nice. And then maybe I'll read one more. Vino Azulman says, my players' hirelings get a half share if they're going into the dungeon, 1 to 5 gold pieces per day if they're staying topside, depending on their expertise. Ref controls them, but players provide direction. I treat them as a group resource keyed off the highest PC's charisma score. Don't abuse them. At best, you will get a bad rep around town. At worst, you'll be left cold and alone in the dark when the dude with all your torches bounces. There you go. And then current accent uses the rules cyclopedia and goes by the rules of that. Excellent. I do like hirelings. Daniel Lambert says, every time I give my party a low-powered NPC helper, they seem to want to get rid of them quickly. Daniel Lambert, is that because because I think what can happen, and I don't know, and obviously you can let me know if this is true to your game, that sometimes, and I've seen this in 5th edition, the thing with GMs, they want leverages for plot hooks. So someone will write in their backstory, I've got a mother and 2 sisters and a brother back home working the farm and wherever, and then the DM's like, aha, and then as soon as possible, the family's under pressure, or they're kidnapped, or they're killed, or something, because they want to use that connection, use that backstory juice for a plot hook. With NPCs, I've seen sometimes where every NPC ends up being the one that stabs you in the back, so that the first time that happens, you're like, oh well, that's all right, that sucks. Second time it happens, like, that's a coincidence, and then after that, and I'm not saying this happening in your game, Daniel Lambert, that could be the experience of your players, but at a certain point, you go, you know what, having these attachments, whether it's in my backstory or whether it's NPCs that I trust, is always used by the GM to stab me in the back. So I'm just not going to have attachments anymore. So you have to be careful. Maybe as a general piece of advice out of this is to be careful which NPCs, what frequency you turn them against the party for reasons of plot hooks or do whatever, or you dangle them off cliffs for things like that, because the party's just, if you treat everything of the party, if you treat all those connections the party makes as vulnerabilities of the party to exploit, players are going to figure it out after a while, and they're just going to say, we don't want any of those connections because we're just going to get rid of those vulnerabilities. So be careful. And I'm not saying, Daniel Lambert, that happened in your game, but that could have been the result of them playing in other games, so they bring that baggage to your game. Daniel Lambert also says, some of the OSR rule sets seem like they allow a lot of hirelings. That's a lot to manage in the game, but that's already about resource management. It can be. Like I said, in my game, I found that because all the ones that are going into dangerous places get shares, that once the party starts seeing that they're going to have to pay for these, and they have to pay before they're able to convert that experience, that loot into experience, it's kind of, pre-experience, that limits their enthusiasm. And then if you have hirelings that are all at home, your accountant, your butler, a couple other people, then to me, I don't find it that bad, because they're only coming to play sort of during downtime or whatever, once in the blue moon. But yeah, it probably could get out of hand. And if it did, I might have to figure out a way to, different strategies to manage it if it became like that. But it hasn't been that way for me. So, I haven't had to deal with that particular issue. Terrence says, my player's typical background, I'm an orphan whose entire extended family is dead, raised by a nameless mentor who is also dead. Yep. And I think, Terrence, I think that's, and it's one of those things that I think GMs do this because they think they're doing this good thing. Look, it's the player's backstory, and I'm mining it for stuff. But what the players oftentimes don't necessarily want these things. Just because, just because my backstory says something doesn't mean that's what I want to do in the game. And I'm a guy who left the family farm to go find adventure and so and such, and I did that, and I left behind my 8 brothers and 4 sisters and my mom, my pa, my grandma, my granddad, my dog Sparky, to go off of this adventure. Me as a character, I want to adventure out in the world. That's why I left. That's kind of what I'm saying my backstory is. I want to go out there and make it rich, and then maybe at the end of it come back and buy out the family farm. As a player, I probably want to get out and adventure. The GM sees that and goes, ooh, family farm, all these brothers and sisters, mother, father, dog. Guess who the cult of Orcus is coming after right now? And then you just get pulled to this thing, and as a player going, I didn't put these things in my backstory to have to go back to the farm. Like, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go out over here. And it's kind of a fine line, because at the same time, there are often players, especially with the modern game, who will put all this stuff in their backstory and feel cheated if that stuff isn't put in. So it's you gotta follow line. But I would say you don't always have to put them in jeopardy. It can just be like a nice thing, or you can put them in jeopardy obliquely. And the nice thing with hirelings is they are also things that you can put into jeopardy that are useful to the PCs. So the PCs are generally going to want to keep their hirelings alive because they've proven themselves to be loyal and useful and all these other things. And then, but at the same time, it's not the same amount of I guess, responsibility maybe as with a backstory person, but you just got to be careful with it. Elfbait says, my personal crusade is to never create a tragic backstory again. It is tough, Elfbait, right? It is tough because in most games you're saying, a lot of OSR games, a lot of role-playing games to begin, out there, it's generally thought of that, hey, the adventurers are that 1% who are willing to go out into crazy places and do crazy things that nobody else wants to do. So what drives someone to do such a crazy, absurd thing? And the easiest solution to that problem is to say they've got nothing to lose. Well, how do you end up with nothing to lose? Well, you've lost everything. And how do you lose everything? It's some kind of tragedy. That's just how it is. I think the last character that I played in a game, other than maybe a one-shot, was a halfling, and I went through by that same rule. I just said that he's on a walking tour. He ran out of money, so he was kind of trying to find some odd jobs to get him through, basically just to earn some money so he could keep doing his globe-trotting ways, and then just got sucked into the adventure. And it worked pretty well. It was very simple, but it wasn't particularly tragic. But yeah, it's tough. Daniel Everett said that they do understand that. They've made that mistake before. We've also seen NPCs that just end up being great allies. I think my table just doesn't like running them in combat. I don't blame them. It's that's why I will run them in combat, and that way I can make decisions that maybe the players don't want to do, but the NPC might want to do. I can put them in jeopardy a little bit if I think that's what they would do. But yeah, I totally get that. Elfbait actually has a cult of Orcus threatening the player's hometown. I'm prescient at times. Elfbait also says their last character was the youngest son of a noble family that loved him very much. His grandfather bought him a fine sword and armor, and he's out into the world seeking to make a name for himself. Yep, I think that's a good one too. And you can also have cultural things that, hey, this is what you do, kind of a Rumspringer. You have to go out and do something to and then come back. You have to prove yourself in the world. You have to go find the head of Alfredo Garcia and bring it back. There's all kinds of things you can do. What else have we got? Do we want to see? I saw this AI fantasy art. I feel like I've been on mid-journey overload, so maybe I will skip. I kind of want to see it though for myself, but I'll come back to that later. I feel like I don't need to bother you guys with mid-journey madness all the time. But if you guys want to see some of those, let me know and I can cycle back to it. Cycle of Adventures. Is that a one-pager? I said I would have write a cycle of adventures. So here is the second one, The Church of the Unveiled Spring. You could play it as a single adventure or after having played The Church of the Howling Autumn. Both of them are pay what you want on drive-through. Link in the comments. This was posted by ORB. There it says Alfredo Garcia. Sounds delicious. Yeah, Alfredo Garcia. There was a Sam Peckinpah movie in the 70s called Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. It's a really excellent movie. It's really dark, but it is good. Definitely worth watching. And it has, I would say there's, being that it's a Western, not in the Old West, kind of modern Western, definitely has that vibe to it. So I think you can pull some of that. You can really find some things I think that will work in a role play, in a role, especially in a classic sort of role playing game that took so much from sort of the Wild West. I think you could pull some of that. It's a great movie, but man, it's dark. All right, in the Church of the Unveiled Spring. I'm trying to see if I can zoom in here. I have it as an image. Looks like it's a one pager. I guess let's just get it. I guess that's good enough. Ian, you were doing Mid-Journey show and tell in a bar? Wow. Yeah, I don't know how many images I've generated with Mid-Journey so far. Way too many. I mean, I think my Patreon is just going to turn into a Mid-Journey image share. But if you want some really high resolution, I think pretty good Mid-Journey renders, feel free to sign up for the Patreon. I think the lowest level is just $1 a month, not even a thing. But yeah, Mid-Journey's taken up a lot of my, I think a lot of my kind of leisure time as I'm watching TV or something, I'll just do Mid-Journey in the background. What makes it super addictive too is you can just do it on your phone. It's not connected to an app. You don't have to have it on a laptop or some kind of beefy hardware to run. It's not like Photoshop or something where it's really intensive, since you're just sending a prompt out to online. And it's because and the thing is, I was really dubious about the bot part. So like, oh, it's through Discord and a bot, and like, and maybe they could do that same thing in a web app, but it just makes it super easy. Just run prompt. Oh, here, variation, boop, 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 and just like put it down for a few minutes. Then come back and you get a bunch of images. Oh, do this or that. Then I get an idea. Oh, throw this in. And I mean, last night my wife's falling asleep. I forget what movie we were watching, and I'm just, oh yeah, do prompt, just there on my phone. Mid-Journey is adding, yeah, I saw that last night. Mid-Journey is adding some sort of user following functionality. Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to work, but yeah, I did see that. Okay, here we go. Church of the Unveiled Spring. It is said that behind a small waterfall, in somewhere no one exactly knows, there is a flowery valley, and in the middle of the bright colored petals is placed the Church of the Unveiled Spring. It is also said that few pilgrims reached it a long time ago by following the howling wind of autumn, which brought dry leaves through the cold water. Someone talk about treasures and the veiled truth the church keeps. Many tried to discover it. No one has ever returned, according to the stories. Maybe their corpses watch over the valley. But this is only an old story, isn't it? A couple of little typos in there, but other than that, it's a nice little intro. So we have some areas here. We have a little map. So it goes 1, 2. I guess there's a T. T for trap. I don't know if T. Do they all have T's? No. So the area the first is the waterfall in the flowery valley. Waterfall, turning back means death. Flowers pollen causes hallucinations. Errant knight asks for something he lost. Roll a d4. A mask, a chalice, a cloak, a strange seed, then vanishes. Appears to help PCs if lost item is found. That's very simple. Area 2 is the pond, and the weeping willow, and the cradle of unborns. Water reflects things as consumed by time, except for the tree. Touch water causes aging of 1d10 years per round. Yeesh. Drink lymph of the lymph of the tree grants to not. Okay, hold on. So maybe English is not their first language here. So if you drink the lymph of the tree, drinking the lymph of the tree grants, I guess, immunity to the water's effect for 1d4 rounds, but causes spring fever during which healings cause damage instead. Closed passage on pond's bottom engraving blood for a new life. Bottomless dark hole, a copy of who enters crawls out to kill and take his place after the pond is left. Yeesh. Wait a minute, is that in closed passage on the pond's bottom? What does that mean, closed passage on the pond's bottom? I don't know what that means. Is that to mean that there's I think they just could have gone bottomless dark hole? Elfbait's still waiting for getting the beta. I think Elfbait, apparently, from what I understand anecdotally, they're ramping up their beta invites. So I think folks are getting approved or going through the system and getting their access quicker and quicker. Let me just say this. I don't want to turn this into another Mid-Journey video, but if you anything like I think most people are, you will unless you really are disciplined, you can run through your free allotment of images super fast. So when you get approved to the beta, it doesn't just give you unlimited access to doing images forever. You're going to get a number of images. I don't recall how many there are. I don't think I really paid attention to how many there are. And if you're like me, and I think, and again, anecdotally from other people talking in the Discord server, you run through that stuff like gone, done. Thanks to patrons and support and various things, I was able to buy the second level subscription, which I think is $30 a month, which then gives you some things to play with. There's a basic one that's $10 a month. You're limited to 200 images, which, again, if you're like me, you'll probably blow through. I think at this point, if I go and look at my info tab, or if I look online, I've probably close to between 1,000 and 2,000 images I'm at. And I think I've had the thing for a week and a half, 10 days, something like that. So that middle one, the $30 a month, will do you well. If you decide to go on, I think that the $10 one doesn't have one. The $30 one, you can turn on relaxed mode. Relaxed mode slows down the speed at which you're getting images back, but you get unlimited relaxed mode. Fast mode, which is more responsive, you have a certain number of images before you then have to start paying for images. And I blew through a lot of that before I realized what relaxed mode was. I was like, oh, relaxed mode. Now I've switched, and I'm pretty much just in relaxed mode all the time, which is fine for me because I can just do some work and I can put a prompt in and check it in a few minutes, get something like that. I think if you go to forums.hex.press, I've kind of started a Mid-Journey tips and tricks guide that I'm just throwing resources in to kind of track them as I keep them. So go to forums.hex.press and you can find that thread and check it out where I'm dropping in links. I have a few things in there right now, but stuff I found helpful in my Mid-Journey journey. Ian says the beta took a week for them. But he said they did provide a little info on how it would be used. They seem to imply that would help in selection. Okay, I don't know. I think I put how I was going to use it too. Basically gaming stuff. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't heard if that makes a difference or not. But it can't hurt if you know what you're going to do with it or you have an idea to put that in. Okay, so that was we were at the pond, the Weeping Willow, and the Cradle of the Unborns. This stuff is really cool. I like the atmosphere. I like the feeling of it, the vibe, the kind of implied sort of setting. It needs another pass for comprehensibility on some of those things. I get the sense maybe that it's sort of translated into English as opposed to English native, which is fine, but just maybe have somebody give it a run through to give it some more polish. Area 3 is the church, which is unadorned, a statue of a pregnant woman acting like eating something. See again, acting like eating something. Stairs to 4. Antechamber. Just put stairs to the antechamber and then put parentheses 4. I don't know. That's just me. All right. The antechamber, fog on the way to the Tomb of the Spring. Small altar with horned statue on, lock in the head, a flower, semicolon. A flower key can be used, removes the fog. Probably could be. It's a little bit more confusingly written than maybe it needs to be. Roll encounters each time the PCs pass here after the first one. And then we get the Tomb of Spring. There's a skeleton with ancient clothes, flowers thrown. Is it a floor? Is it a throne? A floral themed throne? Is it a throne made of flowers, or is it flowers and there's a missing comma for throne? I don't know. Sun key on its lap. Take it. The skeleton says, "Spring ends. 24 hours to leave the church, or all the PCs will be trapped forever in the valley." Turns to ash. There's also 3D 100 silver coins. Okay, so what does the key do for you? Spring ends. The underground garden. Obelisk. Oh no. Obelisk from which flows purified water. Can be carried through the portal in the next room. Blind Maiden offers to heal PCs, afflictions, cures hallucinations, or delirium, but asks for both eyes as payment. Refuse. No more water in here, then vanishes. Yeah, definitely needs an editing pass. Fetus's tree. Ooh, that's interesting. And the portal, a tree which fruits. A tree whose which fruits are fetuses. There's probably a better way to write that. A black portal shows pilgrims holding decaying fetuses. Cross it. Yuck. For each taken fetus, roll an encounters. Put a fetus on the statue's hands, and one statue eats and gives birth to a decaying fetus. For each one more so obtained, the fetus afflicts the owner with necrosis of a random limb. The portal can be crossed only by holding a decaying fetus to reach the dream of spring. All is dark. Okay, so the woman asking for the fetus seed and some purified water from a distant spring. Refused. She dies and giving birth to a bloody abomination of flowers and flesh. Cannot die. Stalks the PCs out of here, except she grants spring blessing and then petrifies. And then area 8 is the circle of lost memories. 10 stones around a ritual circle. All right. I think this definitely, I feel like needs I see, T is for treasures. This could definitely use another pass, I think. And I'm just going to say this again. I appreciate the aspect of these where we want to say, hey, it's a one-room dungeon, or not one, a one-page dungeon. Therefore, this is the aesthetic. This is the limits that I'm putting upon myself. But look, this is a digital product at the moment. Even if it weren't a print product and you wanted to keep it to one page, you got two sides of the page, use it. This could be made a lot clearer if you just chose to use some extra words, and I get it. I appreciate that they didn't go with some really tiny font that I'd have to zoom into 300% to read. Go get binoculars or put under a microscope to read. But at the same time, trying to be super concise like this, and just a lot of those little linkages and language linkages that could help, or formatting things like, hey, in the first area, there's a little table you're rolling on, but you don't format it as a table because it's going to take too much space. I'm not actually sure if it would take much more space than it ends up taking. But using colons and things where you could, or if you're going to keep it like this, then use symbology, use some more formatting to make things a little bit clearer. But I like the vibe of it. I'm not sure about the actual thing, though, because it seems like you just kind of run through and then you kind of screw yourself and then you got to run out. I don't know. It just seems like, hey, we're in here. Oh, God, we can't leave. Oh, God, we got so many turns to get out. Oh, God, things are doing necrosis to our limbs. It's very linear, and I'm not sure why the party would go here. What is there from the party to get out? I suppose there are these treasures here, but it just seems like, why would I go to this place? It seems like kind of like a very linear death trap. Maybe not my cup of tea in that regard, but I really like the atmosphere, and I think there's good ideas to pull out of here. But that just seems a bit, without any more context of why I'm coming, what is the thing at the end of this thing, it just feels like it's a place that is meant to kind of destroy you in many different ways, unless you follow a very specific path to run out. But that's it. Church of the Unveiled Spring, posted by ORB. Which is Old Raging Barbarian, aka, what's her name? Simone Temeta. So there we've got that. So good. How are we doing on time? All right, we're doing pretty well. The Underhalls of Frostwound, new Arctic adventure for OSC is available now. Here's might be a good question. Let's see what we got here. This is posted by God Goblin. How do you integrate player strongholds / assassin's guilds / mustering barbarian hordes into module-based play? Seems like in AD&D, a lot of the class is dedicated to gaining these abilities once you reach a certain level. I really think it's cool and know my players will think so too once they read it. But if you're running more of module-based campaign, will these typically fall by the wayside, or can they work side by side? Or once they hit that level, does it become more of a sandbox to enable them to utilize these resources? Any ideas or personal experience appreciated? So my thought is, I think this is actually a pretty strong question because that has been, I think back in the day, to a certain extent, once module play became a big thing, there was a conflict between these higher end abilities that really were all about domain, sandbox, kingdoms kind of play, and then you're running around in modules. So how do you put these together? Do you just, and I think a lot of people just kind of threw away the stronghold stuff and just said, we're just going to run modules, and that's kind of where the industry went for a long time. And now to some degree it's kind of circling back, or has circled back, at least in some ways, but that's kind of how it went. It's like, I don't want to run barbarian hordes, and it sounds more fun than it is really to run a guild. I want to go kill gods and crisscross the plains and chase Tiamat and all this stuff. So there are a couple things you can do. I think the classic thing is that you would have multiple PCs per player, and that one PC would become Duke or King or Prince or Barbarian Lord or whatever you have, and running that stuff. And then that particular character is no longer running through modules, unless it was something like, oh my gosh, Tiamat is here and we have to go do something, and we need the kings of old to go back into the field and run stuff. Then you might go, okay, I'm gonna have to bring this guy out of retirement. Like in Running Man, when Schwarzenegger has gone through all the other ones, they got to bring Jesse the Body out of retirement to go fight him. That might be your high level PC. Oh, the king's got to go back on the field. No one can stop Mordred, so King Arthur has to wield Excalibur once more. That kind of thing. Other than that, they're doing domain stuff. And then you have these other PCs. Okay, well, I have King Arthur, who's level 10 fighter, but I also have Sir Bedivere, who's level 4, and I have Sir Percival, who's level 2. And so, okay, where's the party going? Oh, we're going to go do this thing. That seems like something that maybe Sir Percival can handle, so I'll send my level 2 guy in there. Oh, this is a little bit more dangerous, or the stakes are bigger, so I'll send Lord Bedivere in there. That kind of thing. So you'd have these multiple PCs, multiple levels, and then you could kind of pick and choose. And remember, because back in the day, particularly, you could essentially get a good idea of the challenge, the kind of levels that were appropriate, or that you could send by which level of the dungeon you're going down to. So someone says, hey, we're going to the ruined Abbey of Arg, and we want to go, we've already gone through the first 3 levels, we want to go down and hit level 4 and check that out. I could send Sir Percival, who's level 2, but I know that Sir Percival is going to have a tough time down there unless they get some protection from the group. And I might still do that. I might say, hey guys, I know you're going down to level 4, which is over Sir Percival's head, more or less, given that generally the levels of the dungeon kind of correspond to your player levels as far as kind of what's right for you. So you say, hey, I know this is a little bit over their head, but if you could just give them a little protection, they could still help out, and then they'll get, you got more experience from treasure gotten from deeper down, then you could do that. Or you might say, okay, that's level 4, I'm going to send Lord Bedivere down there, and you would run that. So in terms of, now that was kind of the mega dungeon days, we weren't really necessarily playing modules, but the modules in the universe kind of play the same way. You'd have to then, I think the thing is you have to do with modules, which changes the game a little bit, is there has to be that extra context you have to put in. Because I can't count on, oh, well, they're going down to the 4th level, so that tells me something as a player. Oh, they're going down to the 4th level dungeon, that means that more or less 4th level is what is kind of your I should have at kind of minimum. Should have that right. If unless I'm going to take a chance. If you're just playing a module and the module just is levels 4 to 8 as a player, I don't necessarily know that. I don't have that sense, and so as the GM, I need to build up that context. Oh, you're fighting giants that are in the situation. As a player, I go, ooh, giants, they're tough, so I better bring Sir Bedivere. Oh, there's some goblins stole this guy's cat. All right, that context seems a lot lower stakes, much more of a local problem. So Percival can go handle some goblins stealing cats. Now it may turn into something else. The goblins stealing cats are actually giants in disguise. Oh, well, maybe, but you get what I'm saying. But I think you end up putting them together. I think if as a GM or as a group, if you're really interested in module play, maybe just don't engage with the domain stuff and just leave it aside. I will, however, shout out to Birthright, which I covered on the channel a while back, does give you some a way to integrate both approaches with sort of your domain turns and then doing your adventuring stuff. So that's a good resource. Terrence says, "Sir, not appearing in this dungeon." Yep, exactly. Curious to see what other guys have. Vino Azelman, who we saw before, so they were interested to see how others answer. They never made it to the level play. The vibe they always got is that it's a different game when you start domain play. And then Neoclassical Boom responds to that and says, you can take the game in a different direction, but it's not unworkable with module-based play. Players can have henchmen or followers run the domains or organizations for them while they are off adventuring. Another way is to have players use multiple PCs, with the PCs controlling domains, etc., now acting as patrons for other characters. This turns the game into a multi-tiered experience with different, more war game type events and activities happening at one level and traditional adventuring happening on another level. Very good. Investigator Hungry says, I'd always prefer domain play in a sandbox. I mean, just constructing a castle can take a year or more. But a sandbox can easily contain modules. It will just be a bit impractical for your character to travel to distant lands if they have affairs to manage at home. That's where retainers can come in, though, either send off on missions in the character's stead or managing the affairs at home. And this is lukewarm coffee for the working man. Terrence is picturing a giant stealing a noblewoman's cat using goblin hand puppets. Yeah, how many goblins in a trench coat would it take to look like a giant? That's my question. That would be great. Oh, my phone just blooped and I don't know why. Okay, what else we got here? Current accident _52 says, I think BECME has the most modules that focus on this sort of play. Most of them are easy to convert to AD&D. I think Test of the Warlords is generally considered the best of them. I looked at Test of the Warlords here on the channel. It's kind of a cool adventure and very domain-oriented, sandboxing. The lowdown is that Stronghold Guild Horde stuff is largely a carryover from wargaming. I think Tim Kask once said that in the early days, when players got to 10th level, they were just retired as NPCs who held fortresses or towers or some other sort of high position. Honestly, I think that is the best approach. If you start going with the managing of a stronghold or guild theme, the game can easily move from D&D and become a game of Risk. Some of your players might like that, but it quickly gets stale. I do think that an imaginative DM can do some cool things with these elements. I have had players capture a stronghold and keep it as their base. You can have a village grow up beside it, have to protect it from monsters, have quarrels with folks cutting off your water supply, etc. But I would just have it as a base for adventuring, not constantly worrying about economics, politics, etc. Those elements can spice up a game and make it more interesting, but you do not want to make it a game of keeping up with boring stuff and doing boring things. Creating an Assassin's Guild could be interesting. Players might have a rival guild and have a race to find an interesting item or artifact. Players might have to convince a barbarian horde to attack a wizard's tower while they sneak in another way. There are lots of ways to use these elements to make a game interesting. I would stay away from mass combat as it is nowhere as interesting as it sounds, unless you do it in a fast manner with lots of focus on the PCs or zooming in and out of battle. And keeping up with how prices and politics can be lame as well. Usually players get to hungering to get out and get in a dungeon. I don't necessarily agree with all that, but there are some good things. It says 42 goblins in a trench coat equals one giant. Maybe hill giant. Or no, hill giant is not that big. So yeah, 42 goblins seems like a lot. But they also got to go they got to get the width and the height. I'm not sure I agree with everything current Accident 352 says, but it's definitely a point of view. I think you can combine them. You just got to find that. I think that it's going to come down to your group, your party, your table. What do folks like? What do they not like? what do they want to do? What are they interested in? Because one person's boring and someone else is exciting. So, that's the thing where you're reading on the internet, someone says, oh, it's boring to do this stuff. But your table, it might not be boring for them. There's lots of stuff that some people find super interesting. Like for me, I don't get a kick out of writing really long backstories. For me, it's like I'm pulling my own teeth out. But for other people, they can just spend whole evenings writing up intricate backstories. But hey, like that's great. So the solution to a problem for backstories for me is one thing. The solution to that same problem for another person is something very different. So, take it when someone says it's boring or something else, take it with a grain of salt. Hey, look, accountants play video games, board games and D&D too, and they may get into the politics and the pricing and the economics of that stuff. That might be the whole thing that gets them fired up. And if that's them, then use that. So do what you do for the people that are with you. All right, so we only got a couple minutes left. Ian says, I don't like this mode of play, so it's obviously bad. Yeah. But we all do that to a certain degree, right? We're all coming at it from our own angle, our own prejudices, our own desires, wants, and likes and dislikes. So, all right, let's take a look at this because we just have a few minutes left, and heck, why not? So someone's gone through, or I should say someone, user Cy_Sperling, Hair Club for Men. He's not just the president; he's also a client. AI fantasy art using classic TSR artist names in the prompts. This is definitely up my alley because I've been trying to do this stuff. Are they saying who they are? Hold on. All right, so where are the names? Oh, wait. Oh, so this is Keith Parkinson. I see. Keith Parkinson. One of the things that's interesting with Midjourney that I think everyone's found is they have a really hard time. I think I might have mentioned somewhere else. Hands, feet, basically figures in general, give it fits. I don't quite understand why it's able to do some things just amazingly well, and things like hands and bodies, it tumbles on. I think the simpler and more silhouette-ish you ask it for, the better. Though people have been getting some good results here and there, but you can get some really weird oddities. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't see there. Okay, so that first one was Keith Parkinson. This one is, also says Keith Parkinson. Well, where are the names? Where are the names we were promised? Do I have to go in the comments? Yeah, Cy Sperling said they keep trying Errol Otis and the AI fails again and again. He's just crazy to emulate, I guess. Yeah, I think it's or more likely there isn't as much of his art available. Yep, I've tried Errol Otis and hasn't served me well. Oh, okay, here's the caption. All right, so this is better to do this way. So let's go back. All right, so this one is Keith Parkinson. Oh, okay. Oh, maybe it was giving me the captions. All right, so there's Keith Parkinson again. Larry Elmore. More Keith Parkinson. Jeff Easley. That's pretty good. Maybe some of these are better because you're not getting the... Let's see if you zoom in here. So you get... When you're zoomed out, it's not that bad, but sometimes you get them, especially when you're doing more, trying to get a more photorealistic look, and you get all kinds of weird... I kind of like it when I'm trying to do some different portraits of the Viscount in my game, who's kind of a slovenly, kind of gross guy. I get some really disgusting looking people, which sort of serves my purposes, but at the same time, it's almost too much. This one's really cool. Look at that. I'm not sure what's going on, but it's so dark and creepy. I wonder how, do you know what, here's the thing I'm wondering, how long is this how long is the, what do we think the over-under is on the, on people's, or I guess I should say maybe the honeymoon with Midjourney before people either, one, for at least some amount of people just move on to the next thing. I don't think I am going to move on. for a long time until maybe something else comes along, simply because I'm already getting practical usage out of it. When I was looking for a cover art, a background for a thumbnail for my yesterday's stream about journeys into the unknown, I pulled up Midjourney and started cycling through cool images, some prompts until I got something cool. I still need to figure out, because of just the way I make my thumbnails, like some placements of area of interest work better than others. Like something in the center sometimes works okay. So anyway, I got to figure that out in terms of the layout, and it's hard to indicate. I haven't had a lot of success, or I've had middling success, maybe I should say, with trying to tell the thing, put this element here, put this here, put this whatever. So that's kind of tough, but I've already been finding practical usage for it. It's given me something that I can feed to Patreon, and hopefully people find usage out of, which gives me some way to say thanks to the folks that allow me to use those tools like Midjourney. It gives me stuff I can put on, Instagram and things like that and share. And it gives me inspiration, and I can use it on the channel and backgrounds, things like, and when I start gearing up for putting out materials, which I'm way far behind on, but I'm already putting together work through that. So I'm getting a lot of practical usage out of it, but I'm curious that at what point a lot of people who have been in it kind of as a lark, who don't feel strongly enough about it to want to pay to keep doing it, you're gonna create. So like, I think if my wife or somebody, she's not interested at all in this, really. But if she were, I think she would just put in some, maybe go through the free trial, and then be like, I'm done. That's it. Like, I'm not paying money for this. It was fun as a lark, but not paying money. I'm wondering, because I think for a while, because it's been scarcity, there's been a scarcity of beta access, and people have been posting these amazing things. It's going to go like, whoop, when I think we're in that upward curve, and then it's going to plateau, and then I think it's going to dip. I'm curious what the cycle is going to be. I don't know, Terrence, if they've tried Braum. At least they didn't post it. I do have that thread on the forums for folks to put in prompts to try. No one's actually put in any yet. Not that I have any lack of prompts, but let's see. This person put in, this is the same person, put in a Peter Mullen prompt and got kind of a woodcut type image. That's cool. That's cool. And I guess, we're already over time. I'll just show, you can see my latest Midjourney. So here we go. I've done 1,300, and all of the ones I've done are public. So I've done 1,300 images. I think unique are in terms of my prompts being totally unique. I've been doing these. These are what I've been doing lately, or I should say lately today. These kind of scenic. I really like. So what I'm trying to do in terms of thing is have these different images I want to use for just things like, hey, and just various essentially generic location style things. Like, here's an abbey, here's a ruin, here's whatever that I can use at different things. So I've been going through and putting together some, looking at different art styles, different artists and the prompts to see how you get, and then going through. Some of these turned out really cool. I haven't blown it up yet. I was trying to make something with dice. You get some weird things. I told it, give me a pile of polyhedral dice. I thought would be really easy. And none of them are, like, they're all warped in some way. And I don't know how to quite fix that yet. And then I got more of these, some more kind of ruins. I really like these painterly ones. Some more abbeys. Let's see, is there anything? I don't know if there's anything super remarkable. I really love all these, but they're not like, oh my gosh, the most remarkable things in the world. Oh yeah, I was doing these kind of South American kind of Aztec Mayan pyramids. A couple of those. More dice. This is where I wanted to do a sandwich with dice. And I got like an egg on top or something, and it's trying to make everything polyhedral. It's kind of funky, but not what I was looking for at all. These I kind of like. Standing stones. I think are pretty cool. Ian says you've done 10 jobs. Yeah, well, for me, I found it was very easy to start at 10 and then suddenly you're at 100 before you know it. I mean, look at all these variations. It's variation, variation, variation. I really like some of these. I really like a lot. I really dig these ruins. Oh, this one I like a lot too. Come on, look at that. Come on. Whoops. How can you not like that? Or I don't know. I'm sure you can not like it, but I like it. What did I zoom into? All right, folks. Well, that's a day. Oh, here I'll show this one. I was trying to do basically a. This is basically trying to do like a little keep on the Borderlands sort of poster. So I had the concept was basically the keep on top, and then sort of underground and sort of tunnels the chaos cult of chaos down there operating. I think this one turned out really neatly. I don't know if you get keep on the Borderlands out of it, but you kind of have the keep on high, and then sort of underneath, like simmering beneath the surface, is these kind of ghoulish red light things. Ian says, I think you need to at least get the basic plan in order just to get good. Yeah, I mean, the one thing you could do is once, and I think too, you have to get that second level to get access to the interface, to the app. Because once you get in the app, you can look at prompts that performed really well and start to try to pick apart what they did. You don't get absolutely everything about it, but you'll get a lot, and you can help. But yeah, what if you get the $30 a month one? I would say the $30 a month one, if you're kind of semi-serious, pay for 1 month, and then use relax mode, and then you can just churn through all the images you want and not have to worry about anything. And then at the end of it, even if you cut it off, you'll have spent $30 and you'll have basically as many really cool images as you want. And I would say, like, if you're all serious, I would just say just do that, because anything else, I think if you get into it, you're going to run out. 200 images, you're going to run out. Everything else, you're going to run out. But once you get to the point where you could turn on relax mode and then just crank out as many prompts as you want, and just have to just spend time, and like I said, you can do it anytime you want to, then that kind of, you can really just, in a relaxed, no pun intended way, just figure things out. But all right, folks, I got a jet. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. If you can give a thumbs up on your way out, that would be awesome. If you feel like subscribing and you're not already subscribed, that would also be awesome. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. If you have the long weekend like I do, have a great long weekend. Remember, I will not be streaming on Monday, July 4th because of the holiday. I will try to put a reminder out on the community tab of the channel for that. So have a great, whatever you got going on. Hope it continues. Hope it's great. Hope it's awesome. And I'll talk to you later. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.